The Provoke Podcast, brought to you by Provoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.
Welcome everybody to the latest edition of our Provoke Media CCO podcast. I'm here today with Myriam Käser from Swisscom, which, if the name didn't give it away, is based in Switzerland and is the leading telecommunications company there. And let's start, if we can, with just a little bit of background. First of all, your background, and then a little bit of information about Swisscom.
Sure. Hi, Paul. So, yeah, you said it. Swisscom is the leading telco provider in Switzerland. We just acquired Vodafone Italia for 8 billion at the turn of the year. We already had a big business with Fastweb in Italy, but today it's a company based in Switzerland and Italy with almost equal size of those two markets. And we're in the telco business traditionally, but increasingly also very active in the IT business.
Great. And what was your background, and when did you join Swisscom?
So I joined Swisscom a year ago. And I really wanted to join Swisscom, and all the CCOs listening know that this is not a decision we take. We're being asked if we want to join. And I was really lucky because Swisscom did call me, and I was very happy when we both agreed to work together. Why was Swisscom my employer of choice? First of all, I think it's a wonderful brand. It's a 6 billion brand. It's a big brand, at least in our context. And it stands for the type of values I really believe in. And I do value also the way Swisscom defines the comms function. So it's a very broad definition. It includes public affairs, it includes the brand, sponsoring, image comms, it includes the entire ESG topic, and then obviously also the corp comms aspects. And I think this broad definition of the role really allows me to leverage all the synergies and to orchestrate all those relationships of the company in a very good way. My background, I've been in comms for the past 10 to 20 years. I was a journalist once, wanted to become a diplomat once, and lived in a number of different countries to become a diplomat, but then eventually decided I need to work in the private sector, although very interested in politics and society. I really love the dynamic way of working that I find in companies. So I moved to being a consulted a number of Silicon Valley tech brands, but also like big Swiss industrial brands. And then moved to my first CCO position, which was at NZZ Media Group. So it's a big media publisher in Switzerland. And from there, I went into aviation to Skyguide. It's the Swiss air navigation service provider. So I did comms and regulatory affairs and public affairs and brand for this company in a very interesting and complex sector also. And from there, I moved to Swisscom.
Great. And you've addressed this a little bit. The two things that sort of interested me about the role when I started to look into Swisscom was the breadth of the role, which you've already alluded to. It includes responsibility and I guess what we used to call CSR and what a lot of companies would call sustainability these days. And it's quite a senior position within the company, right? It's a sort of executive level role. How important was that in your decision making?
I think it's very important, and I'm a big advocate for the CCO position to be part of a company's exco. Why do I believe in that? I think reputation is absolutely key to the success of a company. It's strategic. Comms can be decisive for the survival of a brand, even if the brand finds itself in crisis. And I really see the CCO function nowadays as this 360-degree stakeholder manager. So at any given point in time, the CCO needs to take investors, staff, journalists, media, politicians, etc., all the important stakeholders of a company in mind, and needs to understand the polarities between those stakeholders, the different expectations, and define a joint narrative that is impactful. Because I mean, any strategy is of no value and will not develop the power to really join people's forces towards a common goal if you don't have comms. So to me, it's one of the most powerful tools that you have as a company. And the CCO function can also serve as kind of an early warning system, because it's the eye and the ear of the company. We are the people who are having those conversations with all of those stakeholders every day. So we can sense very early if something's going in the wrong direction, or also if there are like new trends or opportunities out there that we should be leveraging as a company.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been hearing from CCOs, and that sort of fits with my own philosophy about how this stuff works, is that as we move into a sort of infinitely complicated, issues-rich world, that words like polycrisis and permacrisis have become part of our language over the last few years, that ability to have the ear to the ground with all of your stakeholder groups, and to therefore be able to interpret all of those signals in a coordinated way and respond to them quickly, is even more important than it was in years past. And so the broader the role's remit, the better the radar that you have for potential challenges and opportunities.
I can only agree, Paul, with everything that you're saying. I think this is exactly the case.
And sorry.
No, also, I mean, I think we live in a very fragmented and polarized world. It's one of the big challenges we're facing also as CCOs. And you have this one group of stakeholders who expects you to have a really firm stance on an issue, and then you have another stakeholder group who thinks the contraries, and both of them are your clients. So I think in this very complex environment, companies need to take very conscious decisions on their beliefs and what they really stand for, and also stand true to them, while having all of those conversations with these different stakeholder groups. And for that, I think the CCO function is essential.
And it sounds like you came into a company that already appreciated and understood the importance of communications, and all of those stakeholder relationships. How had the function at Swisscom evolved prior to your arrival to be that kind of holistic function?
It was slightly smaller before I changed, but I think it was always a key role for the company for a number of reasons. So we are building infrastructure, we're building networks. So this is very politically exposed. Also, we're partly owned by the Swiss state. So Swisscom is a listed company, but we also have the state that owns half of the company. So political interest and exposure of the company is very high. And that makes the role of the CCO, of course, a decisive one for the success of the company.
And then let's talk a little bit about what it was that brought you to my attention initially, which is that you have evolved the communications function in a slightly new direction since you arrived, and essentially created almost a sort of new subspecialty within the communications department that is focused on the technology that's evolving in the communications function. Tell me a little bit about that process and how you came to that decision and what that means for the function.
Yes, I mean, we are a tech company, so AI is really a big topic for Swisscom and also for all of my comms colleagues. And we had a number of initiatives coming bottom up. I mean, people want to work with those tools. They want to try out those tools. They want to make their lives easier and create more creative, better outcomes. So obviously, as everyone I'm sure who's listening, I saw how big and disruptive and fast this development in technology was. And I said, okay, we need, to some extent, we need to streamline those initiatives because we need to set priorities. We also need to align with other parts of the company who are also working on AI topic to ensure that we're not duplicating efforts. And that's why I have created this super small unit. It's called the Comtech and Transformation Unit. And I did that in a very pragmatic way. I just said, okay, who in my organization are the people who are very tech savvy because they're dealing with the comms platforms. They are the technical owners to develop and manage those platforms. And I took those people from their initial units and grouped them into this very small unit that reports directly to me. And what we did is we started with an audit. So we wanted people to share all the things that they're already doing. And we found that they're working with a dozen or more tools on very many issues. And then we said, okay, let's meet for a day and we do a promptathon to find out what are the most powerful ideas that we're having in our unit. So initially, I think we had between 50 and 60 ideas that could potentially participate in this promptathon. And we chose 8 cases that we really jointly worked on for a full day, and 5 cases came out of that promptathon that we're really pursuing further. And obviously, over time, as this is evolving so fast, we already have new initiatives that came on top, but the central unit really is responsible for the roadmap and to define, okay, when are we tackling what?
And did you find a huge sort of disparity among your team members in terms of both knowledge and enthusiasm when it came to AI? Or is AI something that everybody is embracing at this point?
I think since we are a tech company, I would say the majority of people is really very interested in those tools. Not everyone is equally knowledgeable, of course, and this is why we also said one of the main tasks also of this unit is to really ensure constant learning and education. We have this AI learning initiative at Swisscom level, and we make sure at our level that people really get constantly trained. We also make it part of our conversations. So, for example, once a month, I have an all hands meeting with everyone, and we have decided that in each of those all hands meeting, we address one AI topic to really make that a joint learning journey.
Okay, and tell me a little bit about sort of the main areas where you've seen AI already making a difference, making things easier or faster, and those areas where you're looking to sort of implement change in the short term.
So, I mean, obviously, it's being heavily used as a thought partner. So whatever people have to come up with, being a concept, being developing a new idea, they have conversations with AI. Then obviously in production, it's being used for videos, it's being used for pictures, it's being used for texts. One of the things, or some of the things we're working on where we think it's really helping us a lot is we built this kind of tool that helps us to make our images brand conform. So it can create images, but we can also take images from a shooting and make sure they are on brand. That is one of the tools that we're finding very useful. Another thing is, we have hundreds of Q&As and wordings and messagings. And whenever we're being asked for by a journalist or by any stakeholder a question, we want to make sure this is all in one place. And we have this media GPT, as we call it, who can help us answer those questions based on the wordings that we have developed.
And sort of how much of what you're focusing on right now is about developing new tools and new ways of working, and how much of it is, for want of a better word, policing the use of AI and making sure that what you do as a team, both internally and externally, conforms to certain standards and guidelines?
I couldn't give you a percentage, Paul. I really think both elements are important. And there is maybe a third element that I would like to mention because it's very dear to me. I mean, we have to be super conscious that AI comes with lots of opportunities, but it also comes with a considerable amount of risks. So at Swisscom, we have this vision that we take very seriously to be an innovator of trust. So we really firmly believe innovation and trust, they go hand in hand and they must go hand in hand. So we said we want to embrace AI, we want to use it, we find it interesting, but we also want to make sure it's being used in a trustworthy manner. So we came up with a guidance for the entire company on how you can use AI in a trustworthy manner. And it's not black or white. It's not you can always use it or you can never use it. You can never use an avatar or you can use all types of avatar. I think the interesting questions are the questions in the gray zone. Yes, but how? So we have three main principles. Principle number one is we as humans, we take responsibility. So for any AI generated content, be it a text, be it a picture, an audio product, we ensure that it's formally, in terms of content, stylistically, it's accurate and it's correct. The other thing, a second principle that is important to us is we remain authentic. So we do really not want anyone to be tricked into believing something that is not true. We want to be truthful and avoid misleading information. So we would never kind of generate people to make a testimonial. A testimonial must be given by a real person. We would not generate, for example, a data center and suggest that it's a Swisscom data center when it's actually not. So context is also super important and always needs to be taken into consideration. And the third element is transparency. And there I think that the corp comms functions still have some room for improvement. I think that our colleagues in the media industry, they are more advanced oftentimes in that type of thinking when it comes to transparency. So at Swisscom, we have created an AI label. And if an image is fully generated by AI, we simply tag it and say, this is an AI created image. And also other products, obviously, that are fully AI generated, we let people know that this is the case.
And is that is that responsibility something that extends beyond your immediate department? So are those guidelines applied throughout the company? I'm thinking about a conversation I had in Davos earlier this year with somebody who said that she, as the chief communications officer, had argued for complete transparency about the use of AI in chatbots. And other people in the company, particularly people in sort of customer service, didn't understand why that was important. So how much of your role is making sure that the rest of the company understands why the values that you're talking about, the integrity and the transparency and the authenticity, are reputationally important across the entire organization?
Yes, I believe it's super important that this is applied by the entire organization, because there is only one Swisscom, and people out there, they don't care which unit at Swisscom was the creator of a certain piece of information or content. So what we did, we went to the executive committee with this proposal. We had a very good conversation with all of the members of the executive committee. They backed our proposal. There were minor adjustments on rather technical topics. But with that approval, we went back to the organization. We developed a course. So we're offering this course to everyone who is interested, but especially those really creating communication. So all of the colleagues, for example, in the marketing function, we really make sure that they are familiar with this guidance. And I have to say, they were also longing for such a guidance, because obviously in their daily work, they were asking themselves those very same questions. So it's super helpful for the professionals to have such a clear definition of how we deal with this.
Yeah, it sometimes seems to me that in a lot of companies, marketing has run off far ahead of where the communications team is in terms of using AI, because this is a wonderful new set of tools that they can use, and they're excited about using it in creative ways. And sometimes the output seems to have gotten ahead of sort of the ethical guidelines.
Yes, I think that's true. That can happen, and I'm sure that also does happen a lot. I think it's super important to work together. So the marketing unit, they did a promptathon before we did, so they inspired us to do so, and we also invited them to join our promptathon, because we wanted to learn from their experience and build on their experience too, and vice versa. So it's really a strong performing together, in our case, between the different functions.
Yeah. And to be honest, the name of your new team, which I think is Comms Tech and Transformation,
Yes, correct.
Suggests a sort of cross-functional approach. It probably becomes exponentially more effective the more widespread it is within the organization, and the more other people try to are able to understand what you're setting out to do.
Yes, absolutely. And we have at Swisscom a super small but effective AI office that really also try to make that links between the different initiatives and units.
And let's talk a little bit too about sort of the external implications of the technology transformation that's going on right now. You were talking about both innovation and trust earlier. And some of the research that I've seen over the last few years suggests that those two things don't always go together and are sometimes in tension, that there is at least a segment of the population that views some of the technological transformation going on, and AI in particular, as threatening, either to their jobs or in a broader sense. So how much of your role do you think is both reassuring people that the technology is going to be beneficial and also maybe ensuring that the pace of change doesn't run ahead of what your stakeholders are comfortable with.
I think this is absolutely crucial. And when we look towards the outside of the company, customers, for example, I think there really is a market for trusted AI. So, for example, Swisscom has created this Swiss AI cloud because we have realized there are many companies out there. They want to play with, they want to leverage all the potential. So we have this AI library that we offer to companies, but they also want to make sure data is safe and data is in Switzerland. So we very much also try to use this reputation that we have for being a trustworthy provider to also design products that are, I think, in high demand at the moment. And then internally, I fully agree with you, Paul. So we have created this huge learning initiative and platform at Swisscom because we want to give everyone the opportunity to really learn and grow with AI. And I really sympathize and I can fully understand that this can also be threatening. And I share to some extent that feeling too. So I think constant communication about the topic is a key to success. And then it's really also important that you define how you use it. And we can also not underline enough that the human remains key. We absolutely need the human in the loop. And I believe that professions of humans will only get more interesting. So if I think about the people in my unit, I think the comms function is no longer about just issuing messages. It is really about managing relationships. And relationships, they are between human beings, and you need to invest in this relationship. You need to manage it. If you think you can rely on such a relationship when you're in crisis and you didn't build it before, it's certainly too late. So this is an example of where I think we cannot be replaced as human. We can be supported in that role, but not replaced. We can become faster. We can become more efficient. We can become more creative. We can be more targeted in what we do, but we cannot be fully replaced by machines.
I hope you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head that, if it comes down to relationships, it's going to be a long time before we have any kind of technology that can duplicate human relationships. And I've actually seen some arguments in recent weeks that you and I are sitting here talking on Zoom, which is not an example of this, but that we are in fact going to go back to more human to human interaction in the real world. I think it was Mark Cuban who said that we were only a few months away from not knowing whether the people we were talking to on Zoom or Teams were real or AI avatars. And so that human interaction, which has always been a core part of our job, hopefully remains and maybe becomes even more important in the AI age.
I believe so. I mean, the sponsoring and life experience team is also in my unit. Today, we start the European Soccer Championships in Switzerland. And Swisscom is a very proud sponsor of this female soccer event. So tonight I will go there. We have a wonderful life experience. It's going to be super emotional. I hope the Swiss team will play well. And this is an experience that I want to have live. I want to share it with people. I want to eat with those people before the match starts, etc. So creating those moments and emotions for people, I think that will remain important. And the value of that is probably even going to increase.
Yeah. Well, first of all, good luck to the Swiss team.
Thank you.
I do follow women's soccer a little, and I know they're not exactly the favorites for the tournament, but maybe home field advantage will help. Just finally, how do you expect AI and other technological change to impact the way that we can measure trust and reputation and the impact of the communications function, so that other members of the senior management team understand it a little better or find it more convincing, perhaps?
So there I see AI really as a gift to our function. So when I think about some of the core developments of our function in the past years and also decades, one is really that we used to be a function that is very much based on good judgment and gut feeling and experience. And we have become super data driven. I mean, we have so much more data at our fingertip, real-time dashboards. I mean, if I'm being asked by a member of the board of directors today, I don't know, this person sees an ad of a competitor and asks me, well, is your network communication holding up to what I'm just seeing and looking at? And I don't, just share my opinion as an answer. No, I look into real-time data and can give and share an informed opinion. And I think the value that we're contributing to a company has become much more tangible than it used to be.
That's great. Okay. Since you have a busy day and evening ahead of you, I'm going to draw a line under the conversation there. I think the issues that you're dealing with in terms of how technology is impacting our profession are pretty much universal, and hopefully people can draw some interesting lessons from the way that you're approaching it. I think your emphasis on sort of doing this in a way that is transparent and ethical and authentic is absolutely critical. And I hope more companies follow that lead. Thank you, Myriam.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was a pleasure.
Likewise.
You've been listening to the Provoke podcast, brought to you by Provoke Media and produced by the international broadcast specialist Marketeers.